Hi guys, welcome to Off the Path Learning. My name is Lisa, this is Shadow, and spooky season is upon us. And so that could be a pretty sad time for us foragers. Things are slowing down quite a bit. All the living creatures are preparing for the long winter ahead in this area. But fret not, there's a lot of things that you can focus on during this slow season. So hopefully during the fruitful seasons you were able to get out there and collect all kinds of beautiful things, plants, mushrooms. And so now is the time to really focus on those things that you saw during those fruitful seasons, to kind of take the time to slow down, organize all your pictures, your files, maybe make some notes about a couple of plants or mushrooms that really interested you. Maybe go deeper into your research with those specific plants or mushrooms. And it's also a great time to further process the bounty from that really abundant season. And so today I want to show you how I went ahead and processed an Indian pipe or ghost pipe tincture that I had prepared during the late season and that I was finally able to kind of finalize recently. And I also want to show you the process of making calendula salve. Now calendula is not a plant that grows wild here, but it is a medicinal plant that I was interested in gardening this year. I am by no means a green thumb, and I don't really enjoy the whole process of gardening. I think it's a beautiful thing, but I think it requires a lot of effort, and at this stage I'm more interested in coming to see what's growing naturally in the forest. But I do envy people who can manage gardens, and of course I do have an interest in it. And so this year I grew chamomile and calendula, and it was so nice to be able to, in the evening, go and collect some chamomile to have some fresh tea. I had a lot of fresh calendula tea also, but I harvested a lot of the calendula flowers to be able to make a salve, because calendula is a cream that I've been using for many years because of its beneficial properties for any skin issues. I kind of have a little bit of rosacea going on, I guess, a lot of redness in my face, a lot of like broken little veins, and so calendula kind of has helped me with that. So we're not expecting to blow your mind with these techniques. I did it very rough, not very well calculated, but we all got to start somewhere. I haven't been making my own medicine for a long time, but I've had just only wonderful experiences with the whole thing, and so I figured why not share the process with you, so that maybe if you're interested but you're not sure where exactly to start, this could be helpful for you. Alright, so let's get into it. So here I'm starting with the oil and the alcohol for the tincture ready to go. But before that, I was gathering the herbs, drying them out because I want to make sure that there is no moisture. So when you're making a salve or a tincture, you want to first dehydrate the materials. So you want to make sure that there's the least amount of moisture possible, because if you use fresh herbs for the salve or for the tincture, you risk having bacteria grow in there because of the moisture, and so you want to remove as much moisture as possible. I did this with a dehydrator, but you can just hang them up to dry, you can put them in the sun, whichever way you find works well for you. Now, because I started this process earlier in the season, I invite you to go check out my personal Instagram page where I have highlights on the Indian pipe collection, and I talk about it in more detail. I also have some other highlights on there that might interest you. If you like the content of this channel, I think you will like the content of my personal Instagram. I've got stuff on Bear's Head Tooth, Indian Pipe, St. John's Wort, Artist Conch, and so go ahead and check it out. If you're interested, I also have the Off the Path Learning Instagram account. That would make me happy if you follow. So let's focus first on making the salve. So the tools you'll need, a strainer, just a mesh metal strainer works. A funnel will be really useful. Stainless steel is nice. You'll need a measuring cup, preferably with a little spout like this one. It's also really handy to have a potato ricer. You're also going to need a double boiler. Now this is a pretty fancy one, but you can go real simple with just a pot of boiling water and a mason jar. You'll also need beeswax for your salve. The easiest is going to be in pellet form. Easier to measure it that way. It's going to break down more easily when you're heating it up. Doesn't hurt to have a notebook on hand just to jot down some information as you're working. It can be helpful to go ahead and look back at your notes, or even in the moment to just keep your measurements on the side. You'll also need a scale, and you'll need the scale to measure out the beeswax. And why not enjoy a nice cup of calendula tea while you're at it? It's always nice to experience the herb in multiple ways while you're working with it. Alright, so let's take a closer look at this beautiful oil before we strain it out. So the way I did this salve is I did not measure out the dry contents here. I would just harvest my calendula flowers from my garden, I would dry them out, I would grind them up, and then I would mix them with oil, and I kept adding more oil as I added more dry ground flowers. So this is what I mean by a pretty rough approach. I did not calculate the oil to the dried material. What I calculated was the final oil to beeswax ratio to make sure that I had a really nice consistency in my salve. So now you get to see the potato ricer in action. I think it's pretty satisfying to see this thing squeeze out every last bit of oil from what's called the marc. This is the exhausted plant material. I did not keep this for any other use, and so you could go ahead and put this into compost once you've removed all the oil from it and you're happy with that. So there it is, there's the beautiful filtered oil that is ready to be turned into a salve. So this 16-ounce mason jar that was about 3/4 full yielded a full cup of oil, and so I'm going to be using a 6:1 ratio for my salve. So because I had 1 full cup of oil, that's 8 ounces of calendula oil. I just did a little quick cross multiplication to figure that I needed about 1.33 ounces of beeswax. You can see here I got to 1.34 and I'm happy with that. Alright, so now the exciting part, the double boiler. So you're going to put a little bit of water at the base there, you're going to wait until it's boiling. And then you're going to add just your beeswax. You're going to wait until the beeswax fully melts. You could help it along a little bit by stirring with a metal spoon, but just know that you will get a little bit of beeswax on your spoon. Once your beeswax is fully melted, you could go ahead and add your oil. Now once you add the oil, you'll notice that the beeswax hardens a little bit, and so just leave the oil and the beeswax in there together so that they can fully melt. And then I suggest that you put everything back into your measuring cup with the spout because it'll be a lot easier to transfer into your containers from there. Just know that you gotta work quick because the salve will harden as it cools off. So as we watch this beautiful salve harden and turn into a beautiful orange color that's very appropriate for this season, just want to talk about a couple of points that I suppose I did not mention during the rest of this. In the past, I've used an 8:1 ratio for some of my salves, and I was pretty disappointed in the consistency. It was a little bit too oily for my taste. So for this one, I went with a 6:1 ratio. That means 6 ounces of oil to 1 ounce of beeswax, and I was really happy with the consistency. It wasn't too soft, and it wasn't too hard either. So just in case you're not familiar with cross multiplication, or maybe you just need a little refresher, so I want a 6:1 ratio, but I have 8 ounces of oil, and so I'm going to multiply 1 times 8 and divide by 6 to get 1.33, and that is the amount in ounces of beeswax I need for my 8 ounces of oil. Now, as you can imagine, this gets pretty messy, so my advice is to clean all of the tools that you used right away with hot soapy water. You might even want to clean it twice. And if you're like me and you're not connected to the city sewage system, you've got your own septic system, I recommend wiping everything first with a paper towel and then cleaning it so that you're not getting all of that fat, all of that oil in your system. So those are the salves. How about before moving on to the tincture, we take a nice little intermission to look at a beautiful tree. So I just want to introduce this tree real quick because it's beautiful and it is a special tree. So this is a basswood tree. I grew up climbing this tree, and so it's nice to reconnect with it here. You can tell it's a basswood by its leaves. They're really big and round, and then you'll have these fruit. So these guys are the fruits of the basswood tree. I'm sure you've seen these before. So wood carvers really like basswood tree. Apparently it's a nice wood to work with. It's very often we'll have these multiple trunks, and the bark, you could tell, is like really, it has these horizontal lines sort of really well defined in the tree. Whereas right in front of it here, this is a maple, a sugar maple, and you could tell the bark is really different. So I just wanted to give a little love to this basswood tree, but we won't talk about it for too long. Let's go. Alright, so you're going to need a lot of the same things for the tincturing process. It's really helpful to have a small funnel like this. You're going to need the measuring cup with the spout, preferably, potato ricer, the large funnel, and the mesh strainer. So this is going to be real easy. You're pretty much just straining the material that's been sitting in the alcohol for up to 6 weeks. I used a vodka, 80 proof, so 40% alcohol. It's crazy to me that the Indian pipe flower is pure white, and then at this stage it's pure black. I'm not going to go into too much detail about Indian pipe or ghost pipe, but I do want to say that when I did my research, I came across the fact that this is potentially a plant that is at risk of being over-harvested. And so please keep that in mind if you decide to make your own medicine. Do a lot of research first to see if this is truly a plant that you want to go ahead and connect with. So I used this AeroPress for the first time because in the past I've found that there was a lot of sediment in my tinctures. This was recommended by Adam Harriton. I've never mentioned Adam Harriton before because I wanted to give the guy the respect he deserves, but let me just say that if you're not watching Adam Harriton's stuff, do yourself a favor and go check out his channel, Learn Your Land. Just transferring it back into the measuring cup with the spout so I could easily pour it into these 1 ounce dropper bottles. I might in the future make a video in more detail about Indian pipe, but for now, if you're interested, like I said in the beginning, I suggest that you go ahead and check out my personal Instagram account. I'll link it in the description below. So that's it. Only thing left to do is label. I'm keeping it simple on these labels. I'm just putting what kind of tincture it is and the date that it was made.
Let the midnight special shine a light on me. Let the midnight special.
And there they are. And there's the fruits of our labor for today. So that's it on this video, guys. I really hope that it has motivated you to maybe get out there and collect your own medicine.